The other day, the hubby and I were out at dinner and he asked me a really, really simple question, but I realized, this is maybe a really good topic for the podcast. So the question that he asked me was, what are the top three mistakes that I see other entrepreneurs and solopreneurs making? So that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode. But before we dive into this, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a tutorial or upload. Okay, so the top three mistakes that I see entrepreneurs making, and honestly, I think I'm guilty of all of them. So just keep in mind that there is, as always, no judgment in this episode at all. This is just things that I see a lot and that I have experienced and have learned from and gained, I think, some wisdom from. And so I want to try to share a little bit of that with you. And it never really dawned on me to do that. I think this is one of those situations where I don't know if it's imposter syndrome specifically, but where you just don't feel like, well, I've got everything together, I've got it all figured out. So, of course, I'm going to share. These are the top three mistakes. But I think when my husband asked the question, it was so easy for me to answer. These responses came to me so quickly. And I thought, okay, then this is definitely something that we need to talk about on the podcast. They're in no particular order, I don't think, but I do think they are related to each other. So I'm going to just go backwards from the order that they came to my mind because I feel like the first thing that popped into my mind is probably the number one, right? So we're just going to go with that. So, number three, trying to have too many offers too fast. This is 100% something that I do, have done in the past. I'm recovering. I am getting better at this because I'm learning, as with everything in my business, simple is always better. It's just always better. Now, does this mean that you can only offer one thing? Of course not. But you don't need to offer everything all at once. You don't need to offer it all up front, and you absolutely do not need to offer it all when you're just starting out. This is exactly where I got into trouble because when I came into the online business world, when I started Tech Savvy Academy, I was coming from a previous business where I was a vocal coach. And I think I've talked about that. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about this somewhere publicly. But I was a vocal coach. I am a singer and I've done a lot of musical theater in Los Angeles. My whole 20s pretty much was spent in the theater. And I did a lot of vocal coaching, teaching new singers. I did a lot of audition coaching for people who were not so much struggling with the singing necessarily, but just with the presentation and picking the songs and all that stuff. And so those two things were pretty organic for me. Started out just teaching singing because other people came to me and asked me to give them pointers on things, which felt so weird. Can I just tell you how weird that felt in the moment? Because I saw myself as the exact same as them. Why are they coming to me for advice? I honestly still don't know the answer to that question, but it happened organically over and over again. So it showed me, okay, this is something I should be doing. Now, back then, I didn't fall into this trap of trying to offer too many things at once because I honestly had no idea what I was doing. I was just helping people with what they were asking me to help them with, which now that I think about it in that way is like exactly why that business worked. I think we overthink things so much. I don't think that. I know we overthink things so much. I know I definitely do. I'm guessing that you do too. And when we do that, when we overthink everything and we don't just listen to what our customer is asking us for, we think that we need to offer everything. So when I started the Tech Savvy Academy, I thought, okay, overall, I want to help solopreneurs with the tech. I want to help them automate things. I want to help them, this, that, and the other. And I immediately went to a place of, okay, well, I don't want to kind of force them into using the tools and things that I think are the best because I see a lot of people doing that. And I always feel like it's a little bit shady, I guess is the word I'm going to use. It felt like they were pushing somebody towards a specific platform or something because it was the one they used and they knew it the best, or maybe they were an affiliate and so they were trying to like funnel extra cash to themselves. I don't know. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, well, my philosophy is going to be like, and this still is my philosophy, that like you can do what I teach in other tools. You don't have to be using the ones that I use. And that is still true. But when I was coming from a perspective of, look, I can help you with whatever tools you're using, I had to offer too many things. If I wanted to offer a simple, how to set up an email automation or something like that, like set up an automated welcome series or whatever, I had to offer that in multiple different platforms because I wasn't teaching from a simplistic place of these are the principles of how you automate, and it might look a little different in your system, which would have been the simple way to approach helping them in the platform of their choice versus, trying to be everything to everyone. So I struggled with that, but I also thought that it would make more sense for me to sell all these things as individual courses. And that's a lot of work. And it felt like I was just constantly on the hamster wheel of marketing something new. I never got to have that feeling of that lather, rinse, repeat, right? That easy business flow where leads just kind of came towards me because people understood what I was selling. Seemed like every time I went to social media or, back then I didn't have a channel. So just went basically to Facebook or Instagram, I was selling something new. And even though in my mind it was all related, it had to be super confusing to my audience because they're like, well, I thought she was selling this thing and now she's selling that. And it was just too many things. And it was super confusing for people. It was never very effective for me. The things that I sold the best back then were like my live programs where I would walk people through something. And I think that's because they understood that. What they were getting, what they were being offered was like one-on-one help, or not one-on-one, these were group programs, but they were being offered guided help with someone and a community aspect. That they understood. But, this email course and then this Trello course and then this course building course, I don't remember what else I had back then, but all of these things seemed different and pulled people in different directions instead of helping them build something holistic. And that's when I started to realize that, when you try to offer everything at once, too many things too fast, not only do you pull your own focus because you can't really put 100% into that many things all at once, but you pull your audience's focus too. They don't know what to look at anymore. They're super confused as to what you're selling. It's especially important to remember, I think, as an online business owner, if you're not selling physical products and you don't have a storefront that you're sending people to, then yeah, you really have to be super clear about what it is that you're selling. And you have to remember that they're not browsing. They're not going into your brick and mortar store and walking around and seeing all of the things that you're offering and being able to, touch and feel. Of course, I'm imagining a clothing store. I'm not sure why, but I just am. But they're not able to go and touch and feel all of the different things. So you have to be able to be more direct, more clear, and more specific about what it is that you're offering. So if right now you're feeling like, I don't know why my stuff isn't selling, especially if you're a course creator, but I think this can apply across a lot of different industries as well. But if you're wondering, if you're like, I'm offering so many awesome things of value and none of them are doing very well, well, that's red flag number one. Let me tell you from experience, that's red flag number one. If you know that all of these things are super valuable and yet none of them seem to be doing well, none of them are selling, that is because you're selling too many things and people are confused. They don't know what's the difference between this and this. Do I need both? You're confusing them. You're giving them way too many options, way too many choices. And red flag number two is if you don't ever feel like you can give the attention that you want to give to providing value into the next thing that you're going to be offering, because that means that you're splitting your focus across way too many things at once. You don't want to add something else new into your offerings until the things that are already there are starting to sell on their own. right? That is a good sign. That's a green flag that maybe you can introduce something else new into your business, into your offerings. Mistake number 2 is expecting clients just to come to you. And this one, look, I don't blame any of us for thinking that this is reality, because we are taught so much about attraction marketing and client attraction and all of that. And look, I'm not saying it's not real. It's real. Client attraction is a thing. Attraction marketing is a thing. And I have, yes, reached a point where most of my clients that I am working with now, they found me. I didn't go out searching for them. I don't do paid ads. I didn't have anything out there that was specifically trying to, reach out to them and sell to them, because I don't like that. But it wasn't until I started this channel, I started getting super clear, going back to mistake number 3, right? Where I really honed in on one thing. Yes, I talk about other things on this channel, but Trello is obviously one of the primary things. Productivity, habit building, all of those things all go together, and I show how they all go together clearly here on the channel. So yes, I'm marketing, I am attraction marketing, but it took a really long time to get to a place where clients are going to come to me from that. So when you're just starting out, expecting that to happen, thinking that you can throw a couple of social media posts out there and people are just going to flock to you and buy what you're selling, it's just not realistic. And there are a lot of people out there who are going to tell you that it is, and that this is how things work, and all of that. But what they're not showing you, I assume, is the years of time that they spent putting out value, getting visibility, letting people know what they're about, and growing that know, like, trust factor, which you probably heard before. That right there is the only way that client attraction or attraction marketing ever happens, which means that you have to prepare yourself mentally for a significant amount of time of putting out value content. And I don't just mean marketing content. I mean showing people what you're about, what you have that they don't, that they need, right? In my case, it happens to be that I understand how to use tools like Trello. I think in a way that a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs don't naturally think. And so what do I have to offer? I can help explain how my thought process works and get you to a place where you can start to learn how to do it as well. That is what I have to offer. It takes time to demonstrate that. I could go into a video and say, hey, this is what I'm really good at, and I can help you do it too. But if I don't show you that in some way, then why would you believe me? Why would you flock to me? Why would you just come to me and start wanting to be my client, right? It doesn't make any sense logically. So why are we so quick to believe that it's possible in our own business? Because it sounds easier. It makes the idea of starting a business and trying to sell something less overwhelming. But just because it makes it seem that way doesn't make it true. So yes, you absolutely can and will if you are focusing in on the right market, the right offering, maybe with an S, but mostly offering, being really clear about what it is that you offer. You will start seeing clients come to you, but it takes time, and it is not something that just a bunch of social media posts is going to get you. And then the number one mistake, the first thing that came to my mind when he asked this question, was trying to grow too fast. And what I mean by that is scaling too fast. I see this in a lot of different places, and I think I'm going to do a whole episode actually about this, because I think this is, like the number one reason that super small businesses, solo businesses fail so quickly is scaling too fast. And in my world, what that tends to look like is automating things before you've done them manually, okay? And you guys know that I am a big fan of automation. I'm not saying automation is bad, but for a lot of reasons, you want to do things manually for a little bit first. If it's a process thing that you're automating, you need to see that the process itself works before you go in and spend the time to automate it, because if you haven't done the trial and error on the process manually, well, you might find yourself having to go in and edit and update your automation every time you realize that, oh, it doesn't go from here to here. It actually goes from here to here to here, right? You need to figure out what that process looks like manually, live with it a little bit, and then go ahead and automate what you can automate. But even more than that, I see people so quick to automate the relationship building stuff. And as you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of automating all of that. I think there are certain things that you need to automate, like when somebody signs up for a lead magnet or a freebie, you absolutely want to automate that. And that's something I would automate pretty quickly because of the fact that as a society, we are used to instant gratification. And if we sign up for something, we expect to get it pretty much instantly. So that is one of the first things that I would recommend somebody does automate, even if it's going to change down the line, because you want to make sure that you're meeting your potential customer where they are. And in that moment, they're saying, I want what you're offering. I want that lead magnet or whatever it is, and I want it right now. So that you want to meet them right there. Same thing maybe with a welcome series, a super short set of emails that each new subscriber gets shortly after they get that lead magnet. But after that, you don't necessarily want to be automating everything. If you get a response from somebody to one of those automated emails, which if you do, kudos to you, because it took me a long time to get to a point where I built out an automation structure, a welcome series where people actually felt the need or the desire to respond. But if they do, don't set up some sort of like automated response from you in your, let's say you're in Outlook or Gmail or whatever, where your emails come to. Don't set up an automated response to stuff like that. You absolutely want to respond to that manually, even though it takes a little bit longer, because they're not expecting instant gratification in that moment. In fact, when they get instant gratification, then they know it's automated. It feels insincere and it feels fake. This is something that I definitely gotten from Pat Flynn. I think it was Superfans, where he talked about returning every handshake. This is a philosophy that I have 100% adopted into my business. I've even taken it so far as to create a handshakes folder in my Outlook so that when somebody does reach out to me from one of those automated emails and I'm going to respond back manually, I then sort that into my handshakes, because that's reminding me every time I do that, it's reminding me why I'm spending that time actually having a conversation and responding personally to that person instead of setting up some sort of autoresponder. This also applies in things like social media. I know that ManyChat is a real big thing out there where if you're seeing people say in their videos or in their posts now, comment a specific word, they're probably doing it because they're using ManyChat. And what that means is that when you comment that word, it triggers an automation in their Instagram, which then posts that reply that you get to your comment and then sends you a DM. Okay, that's all automated. And look, I understand you may get to a point in your business where it's not physically possible for you to manually respond to all of those things. I get it. But you are not there in the first couple of years at least of your business. If your business blows up that big, that fast, and you have that many customers and just things are just popping off that fast, then good for you. But don't do that until you're at a point where you physically cannot keep up anymore. And the last way that I see people growing too fast, especially solo business owners, I think, is when they upgrade into super expensive, fancy software too fast. This, of course, is where I'm focused in business. So I see this kind of stuff all the time. But when you see somebody, and this is why I talk a lot about when I'm in a specific tool, when I'm training on a certain tool, whether or not it's an affordable tool or this is a little bit pricier, because I don't want you to jump into a tool just because you see me using it. I may be at a different season of my business where it makes sense for me to put out a little bit of extra in my overhead, in my budget, for a tool that's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more convenient, but you might not be there yet. And I wasn't either. For a very long time, most of my tools were free. I was putting in a little bit of extra elbow grease and spending the time to set them up and, use this connector and that connector and, all these things so that it would feel more streamlined, but where another more expensive tool could have just done it all much simpler. This is something that I recommend even if you don't feel super techie. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there, mine and other people's, that can guide you through a lot of those build outs so that you can keep your overhead down. You do want to think about tools that are able to grow and scale with you so that you're not constantly having to migrate from one tool to the next. And, specifically email marketing is a place where I'm thinking of that. But stay in the free and the light levels as long as possible. Even if you see something cool and shiny down here, at the more expensive level, if you haven't grown your subscriber list to the point where your email platform is pushing you into that level, then you're scaling too fast. And you're going to have a really hard time feeling successful in your business and being profitable in your business because you're spending too much money on platforms or convenience. I'm curious though, well, first off, you don't need to go into the comments and admit which of these mistakes you find yourself making, because like I said, no judgment here. I have made all of these and I'm sure I will make these mistakes again in the future. But did I miss one? Did I miss something that you see other people make or that you definitely made and recognize that you want to call out for others too, so that they don't, maybe have to make the same mistake? They can learn from you. Let us know in the comments. I hope that you liked that video and more importantly, that you found it helpful. And if you did, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel and sharing it with a fellow solopreneur. And make sure that you check out the description for links for how we can connect and maybe even work together.